Alright, hello YouTube. This is GGP Aquatics. I'm Tristan. This is going to be one of my first videos. I'm kind of trying to do an introduction to the channel to kind of give everybody a feel of what I'm all about, what I'm doing, stuff like that. So what I've decided to do is kind of like a get to know me kind of thing to break the ice. I'm going to do the Aquarium Tuber Challenge. And I haven't been nominated by anybody because this is like one of my first videos. But the point of this is I find that those aquarium tuber challenges are giving you the viewers a new perspective of the YouTubers they've been watching this whole time. So I figured it was a good way for me to break the ice and kind of like get started, get going. And I'm really hoping to kind of in the new year here really get going with the YouTube channel. So let's get started. Question number 1. How did you get into fish keeping? So I got into fish keeping when I was very, very young, probably at the age of like 5 or 6 or something. I was that kid that like really liked to read encyclopedias, and I loved learning about all sorts of animals, where they were from around the world, and that kind of thing. I loved animals. Animals were my thing. So I went to the zoo a lot and all that stuff. But I came from a really small town, and in that small town we did a lot of fishing, obviously, with all the lakes around us, because I'm actually from Northern Ontario in Canada. So if you don't know, Northern Ontario is all forests with a little bit of highways and tiny little small towns. And pretty much what we live off of is the tourism industry. So we have Americans and Manitobans come into Northern Ontario to do hunting and fishing, and that's what really keeps our economy afloat, essentially. That and like logging, so like the forestry industry, and a little bit of mining, like depending on where you are, because like areas like Red Lake, for example, have like gold mining and whatnot. But that's besides the point. So I lived in a small town on a lake, and what we did every weekend, every week during summer, spring, and fall was fish. Even in the winter, ice fishing. All the time fishing. It was the best thing to do because it's a small town, nothing to do. So I really loved playing with the minnows in the boat. That was the most exciting thing for me, because you can go fishing for like 2-3 hours straight some days and you don't catch a thing. Except for minnows, because the minnows can't escape from you in the little bucket. And my little chubby hands when I was a kid would scoop those little minnows up, give my parents the dead ones to use for bait, and I would play with the live ones. Loved the way they like kissed my hand, I called them Nimos, and they were kissing fish because they were kissing my hands. They were really just tasting me. And I found them incredibly fascinating. So when my dad did dig out his old tarantula tank from when he was a kid, he asked me, like, what kind of fish do you want to keep in here? And I said, minnows. I want to keep minnows in there. So we went, I don't know if we went to Walmart or we went to the bait shop, but we picked up some minnows, and I kept minnows in there for like a year or two. And then I think the tank sprung a leak, and then we had to, move away from the minnows, especially because you're replacing them every week or whatever, because they're just feeders. And then I moved on to goldfish after that, because my parents were like, oh, you need a fish tank without a heater to save money. So I got goldfish, and I thought they were the most amazing thing, because you could stick your finger in there and they kissed you, and they weren't scary, and they were colorful and cute, and you could feed them whatever. And I actually kept mine in a tiny little gumball jar. We had like this gumball jar themed fish bowl, and I kept a goldfish in there, only one. It was like usually just a feeder. And we kept it in the goldfish bowl. And it probably lasted like 1 or 2 weeks max, because there wasn't a lot of water changing and all that. I don't think my parents really put in a lot of effort into like researching the fish. It was just for me, make me happy kind of thing. So that's when I first got into fish keeping. Yeah. And then when I got into it for real, for serious, I'm up to 8 tanks now. Was probably this year, in the springtime. I got it real bad. I'm still really into animals. I really love researching things in my free time. I like reading. So when my brother had a betta for his birthday, and he had it for a couple months, probably had it for 6 months. He had it for the whole winter. Anyways, he got sick of it, gave it to my sister. I realized my sister was only gonna have it for about a week because she was like 8 at the time or whatever. So I decided to put a bunch of research into it. What do these things actually need? What can I keep it in, because I really don't like the pink gravel in this little 3-gallon tank, and I don't understand what is filtering it, or if it needs those annoying bubbles. So I did all the research, and I was like, wow, you know what? Bettas should be kept in a 5 or 10 gallon, and so I'm still from a relatively small town, so I took about $150 or something. You know what? I think it was actually closer to 200, just because those newbies getting into the hobby, you spend all your money. So I went into the PetSmart. I picked up some fluorite gravel because I wanted plants. Boy, did I want plants, because I wanted this to be exciting. I thought betta fish were boring. I wanted something that would excite me and keep me entertained in this hobby. So I got plants. I got the fluorite substrate. I picked up kabamba and moneywort, because I really like the look of moneywort for some reason. I was like, man, it's going to be an easy stem plant. And I picked up a lid and a 10-gallon with some cheap CFL bulbs, so compact fluorescence, with the right spectrum to grow plants. And they're still running today, actually. They kind of burn out at about 5 months, just so you know. And they're like $12, so it's probably not worth your money, but it's just an easy way to start out. And I ended up grabbing a thermometer and all the things. Another thing I didn't buy is a filter, because I knew I needed a filter that would be low flow, and I wanted something. I'm always trying to bring some kind of wow factor to something, and I want it to be subtle and kind of something that nobody ever does. And at this point, I was already watching YouTube videos for aquariums and stuff, and I was hooked. So what I did was I made a DIY filter out of the betta cup that the betta came in, and I flipped it upside down. I drilled holes in both ends, and I had a bubbler, and I had filter floss, and I had the ceramic discs, and it actually worked really well. I ran it for about, I want to say, 6 months before it finally really fell apart on me, and I gave up on it and bought a real filter. But it actually really worked, and I was really proud of myself, because it had the wow factor of when people came in. It's like, wow, is that the betta cup? Yeah, that's the betta cup. That's what the store keeps it in, and this is what I keep it in. I keep it in a 10-gallon. I'm amazing. I love my fish. I was after that. So that's how I got into the hobby again, and that's how I started into the hobby in my youth. So what do you feed your fish? This is question number 2, by the way. What do you feed your fish, or what is your favorite food? So at this point, I've amassed multiple kinds of fish, and I need everything from floating to sinking to slow sinking for fish foods. And I've had to kind of experiment with different things, and I really like experimenting in this hobby. I really like the fact that there is so many things to try. But the main thing that I feed at least 5 days of the week to at least 2 of my tanks is Repashy food. If you don't have this yet, get it. Get your butt on it. I don't care. Get on it. This is the best food for fry, in my personal opinion, because once my guppies figured out that this Repashy food was food, you throw a thing of it, I had about 80 guppy fry in a 10-gallon, and I'd be like, oh man, I'm not home to feed them 5 times a day when I'm at school or when I'm at work or whatever. So I'd throw in a piece almost as big as my finger, and right away, chomp, 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 chomp. You had 40, 50 guppies all in this one chunk of Repashy. And when I got back from work, or back from school, or wherever I was going for the day, it was gone. And it was oh, perfect. They totally chowed down on that for hours. And the poop would be everywhere, and it was awesome. Great way to feed your fish. Totally recommend it. I mainly use the Community Plus and the Soylent Green. I use the Soylent Green for goldfish because it was recommended to me from Dandy Arandas, and that's actually how I got exposed to Repashy. He's got a good quality goldfish, by the way, just as a side note. But yeah, Repashy's Soylent Green is really good for guppies and goldfish, certain kind of cichlids. It's about 2/3 kind of vegetable matter and 1/3 meat, and it's got things like crustaceans and stuff to the meat aspect. So it's a really interesting diet, but it's really good for the fish that need it. And then this Community Plus here, which is the other thing I use in like every other tank. So Corydoras, Huli loaches. I've seen my betta eat it. I've fed it to guppies. I've fed it to platies. I've fed it to zebra danios and snails. Yeah, pretty much everything I've fed this Community Plus to, and it's a fan favorite all around. It's super good. You know, you plop a chunk in there and it gets eaten all day. Goldfish like to just ram as much as they can in their mouth with this gel food and just slowly, like, I don't know what they do. They just they're essentially like the kid at the party that takes like 2 handfuls of cheesies, shoves them in his mouth, and he sits there chewing them for the next 5 minutes while everybody else is eating just as much cheesies as him, but he's still struggling to keep it all in his mouth. That's how a goldfish eats, and I love it. What else do I feed? I feed so I'm from Canada. So in Canada, we have this guy in Manitoba, more specifically Winnipeg, who developed Extreme with the people in Imperial Tropicals. He worked together with Imperial Tropicals in Florida to make the brand called Extreme. I haven't tried the pellet food because I'm. This is the weird thing. I don't really like pellet foods, and that's. I know it's kind of weird because they're a staple in the hobby, but I personally don't like them. But I really like their flake foods. I like this the Extreme Community Crave. It's got a good crunchiness to it, so you can pick up the flake and it doesn't stick to your hand, which is a plus. Like, it's amazing. And then you can crunch it up into micro pellets, or not even pellets, flakes for fry. But you can keep it big for larger fish. And then I also use their spirulina mix for the flakes. That's really good. And then I use freeze-dried foods a lot, actually. I've been using them since I got into the hobby, just because they're so easy to keep in like a drawer. You grab a little thing. Like, this is from PetSmart, and this is the one thing, this and frozen food, that I'd recommend buying from PetSmart, just because, like, if you don't have a local fish store, go to PetSmart. They're not that bad for like certain things. Just know what you're getting into. And freeze-dried food is good, especially like for bettas and stuff. Like, then you're not buying a ton of frozen food, and it sits at the top because it's got to wait to fill up with water. And this is really good if you want to like crush it up into a micro powder for fry too. Really good for that. Anything that feeds off the top, it's great for. And then I bought tubifex worms by accident, and then it was kind of like a, it wasn't even an accident. It was just kind of like I walked into the store one day and I was like, you know what? I'll try him. It's got a goldfish on it. It must be good, right? And then I got home, did my research, and I was like, oh, no, nobody likes this food. Oh, this is garbage food. These are garbage-eating worms. My goldfish love tubifex worms. Stick them to the glass, they pick at it. Some of them will put the whole cube in their mouth, and then the worms shoot out their gills. It's great. I love it. Corydoras love it, too. If you want to feed a lot of guppies at once, stick one of those in the glass. They'll munch on it until they're really full. I find that fish will eat tubifex worms at first, and then they get kind of like full, and they don't want to keep gorging on it like they would with bloodworms, which moves me on to my next favorite food, which is frozen foods. And like I like frozen foods a lot. The fridge is so far away. So I generally feed frozen foods when I feed my rapashi. So if I'm not feeding rapashi that day, then there's no way I'm feeding frozen food. So I like to feed mysis shrimp to goldfish because the shells on them are actually a laxative, and it helps move food through their stomachs really well, through their intestines because they don't have a stomach, really well, and then they don't get blockages and you don't get swim problems. And it's really smelly, so they have a really good time finding it. And then bloodworms are my go-to. I don't personally like feeding them all too much because I find they sink too fast for some of my fish. Like my lamb chop grass spores hate them because they're almost too big. and then like sink too fast. But like every other fish, like if I want to just take a giant thing of bloodworms one day, and I want to feed everything one thing, bloodworms. If I'm lazy that day, grab a cube of bloodworms, boop 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 boop, break it up, put it in every tank, everything's fed. Question number 3: what is your favorite fish? Definitely goldfish. Like, I love my goldfish. I've probably put the most time and effort into goldfish. And I've had goldfish the longest. Out of every fish I've ever kept in my whole life, it's goldfish. Love them. I love the variety. I love the variety of colors. I love the variety of shapes. I like that you can keep them inside and outside. I like that they're extremely hardy. And I was extremely drawn to the fact that you can keep goldfish with plants. When I first saw Dustin from Dustin's Fish Tanks keep goldfish with plants, I was like, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to do it. I'm going to break the mold. Everybody thinks you can't do it, because I'm seeing, all these people, they're keeping goldfish in a bare bottom tank, and I'm like, no way, I got to do this differently. I got to create that wow factor. Got to make it like a pond. Yeah, I'll do it like a pond. And then I see Dustin do it. I'm like, perfect. If Dustin can do it, I'll do it. So I'm looking up all these different plants. Well, what do you think you can keep with goldfish? And I'm looking for something that's super fast growing and hardy enough that it doesn't get eaten. And I've had a lot of success, and I love it so much. Love my little water babies, my little water piggies. They're so cute. I love feeding them. They're amazing for feeding. Always active. Keep your bottom, they keep the bottom of the tank clean. So if you're running a planted tank, you don't even need to gravel vac. So that's amazing. Only drawback is if you keep them in a small pond or a small tank, you got to keep up on the water changes. But even then, if you really love the fish, no problem. Question number 4: what is your least favorite fish in general, or that you keep? So I just got rid of my least favorite fish, and that was a convict cichlid. And I don't oh, that zebra danios, man. I loved the activity of zebra danios, but every time I bumped their numbers up, I think it was probably because I wasn't quarantining and medicating them, but it was also because they're just aggressive. So zebra danios is one of my least favorite fish that I've kept. And then the other is convict cichlids, and that again is the aggression, it's the nipping, it's the fact that they make 1,000,001 babies. They're slow growing. You got to keep them in a small tank. The aggression goes up, so you got to put them in a big tank. Then you're like, well, I want to put them with other fish. Well, you read about reports of how they kill Oscars from stress, and it's just like, well, what do you put with the darn things? They're not very colorful. So, long story short, convict cichlids, least favorite fish of everything that I own as of late. And then, in general, least favorite fish, I hate large. And this is funny because this is what got me into the hobby too, is learning about large South American cichlids. But I hate large South American cichlids now because it's just one tank for one fish, and that one fish is such a bully and he's so aggressive. You can't keep him with anything. And you just see this big tank with sand on the bottom, or it's a bare bottom. It just drives me nuts. I want to see something else than a fish. The fish are amazing, but the whole ecosystem, the biotope, I want to call it, I don't know, it is the thing that really brings me into it. I like the multifacetedness of the aquarium hobby. So when I see somebody keeping a flower horn in a 55 or a 75, they're like, oh yeah, look at this amazing flower horn. I love making the big lump on its head even bigger, and I love the reds and the blues, and it's like, wow, yeah, that's really pretty. But that gets boring to me after 30 seconds. I'd rather have a community aquarium. But that's just me. Number 5, what is your favorite filter, or what filters do you use? So, this is one of my weird goals, where I'm trying to break the mold here. Off tangent here. One of my goals is to try every single type of filter. Not even type, but style of filtration. So people would consider a box filter and a sponge filter different, but essentially they're very, very similar. and my goal is to try every single one. But yeah, right now I use sponge filters in a couple of my tanks. I have Herman Matten filters, HMF filters anyway. They're the big sponge walls with the lifter tubes. I've got those. I've made DIY filters before. Those work as long as you make them right. I've had types with bubblers and with pond pumps, so I've tried that. Sponge filters. Under gravel filters, I just started trying that one. I really like the look of it actually, which is strange for me. But what I don't like is the fact that I can't I don't want to put any deep rooting plants, because I want to be able to really gravel back in. I don't know. I'm playing around with it. It's all trial and error. If I don't like it long term, I'll just tear it apart. I don't know. I put the under gravel filter in a tank. I don't know what to do with anyway. What else have I tried? Hang-on backs. When I got into the hobby, I was like, wow, hang-on backs are the best. They're so cheap, easy to run, they're easy to clean. And then I learned more and more about how loam and stuff is beneficial and how it's good for fertilizing the tank. And I learned about the Wallstad method. And I found out, fish like bettas don't like current. And I'm like, well, a hang-on back filter isn't actually that great then. It's only good in certain situations. It's only good for the beginner, or it's only good with the person with a whole school of Daniels. So I have a hang-on back filter, but it doesn't work anymore, and I gave away my other ones, and I don't use them anymore, but I did use them. And then I have a canister filter. I'm trying that out. So far, I like it, but I don't. I like how silent it is. I like the flow rate. I like... people say it's easy to clean a canister filter. It's not. When you have to reach in under your stand and turn the hoses and then pull it out, unplug it, drain it, open it up, rinse out those pads, sift with stuff. It's really not as easy as siphoning a tank, taking a dirty sponge, going squeeze, squeeze, and putting it back. And you just need to... The problem I find with people is they're just afraid of dirt. They're afraid of dirt and they're afraid of mess. They want everything to look pristine, and I don't know if that's just because I'm the only one who likes my fish tanks, or if it's just because that's just my opinion, but I don't know. So what's my favorite kind of filter? Right now, my favorite kind of filter is a sponge filter, just a standard sponge filter with a lift tube and a weight. Not even the ones that stick to the side of the glass, because I've tried those too and I hate them. I hate them compared to the regular ones with the weight. Even though they save space, I like the ones with the weight better. They're easier to clean and they're easier to manage. So yeah, that's my favorite filter in all the filters I use, and my opinions on filters. Question number 6. What lights do you use, and what is your favorite? Same strategy with the lights. I'm trying multiple different things. But with lighting, I'm more nervous to test things. So I use the light that I got with my Fluval 29 gallon. That works good for growing plants. It's a weird warm light. I'd imagine it's probably 6,000 K. And it doesn't have good spread, but it's an LED, so that's good. I've tried compact fluorescence. In a shallow tank, they do really well. Getting the right spectrum is hard. I am currently trying the Aquarium lights that you can get at PetSmart. I am currently finding that the light is very low quality, and you can only grow low to medium light plants as long as your tank is shallow. So it's not very deep. I am trying the Marineland, the 4-foot Marineland lights that are advertised to grow plants with 72,000 K or 7,200 K is the rating on them. And I really like the spotlight effect on them. And I like the fact that they come with an automatic timer. And I find they grow algae really well. I haven't seen any significant plant growth yet, so I'll keep you updated. My absolute favorite though is my Fluval 2.0 light. I have a 3-foot light on a 4-foot tank, and it grows all my plants perfectly, and I love it. So that's my opinion on that. Okay, question number 7. What is your favorite tank setup? So I know I've rambled and kind of like gone off topic with everything so far, but I'm about to do it again. Favorite tank setup is a planted tank. My ultimate goal is to get a tank that's set up in the Wallstead method. So that's a tank with lots and lots of plants, dirt for the substrate, and like minimal to medium stocking with a decent flow filter. Or even just like a power head. And like that's my goal for a tank, and I'm kind of doing that with my 29-gallon display tank in my dining room, but that's the ultimate goal. I really like those setups, but at the same time I really like to be able to tweak and like move in on the tank and stuff. So, and like I guess I have 2 favorites. In general, like my favorite is a planted tank, but I found that I had issues with certain species of plants because they were competing with one another. So my new favorite setup that I've been trying lately is one species of plant and one species of fish. So you don't have competition for the fish. You get way more natural behaviors with it. So you get to see the fish for what the fish is, and it's amazing. So keep them in large schools, just enjoy the fish for what it is, and keep one type of plant. That way the plant doesn't have to compete for nutrients, and the plant just like grows and propagates, and you can clip it and give it to all your friends, and I love that aspect of it. And I know not everybody's going to love that aspect because they have only one tank or they have 2 tanks or whatever, but when you get up to more than one tank, or more than 3 tanks, I guess I should say, you kind of get experimental with things, I want to say, and that's just one method that I really love. And then my ultimate favorite setup is a planted goldfish tank, or a planted goldfish pond is kind of like a variant of it. And I just really love the fact that like there's the stigma that goldfish don't go well with plants, because goldfish eat plants and plants need to not be covered in. So my phone ran out of memory halfway through the video. I checked how far I got, which it wasn't fun finishing this video and then having to redo the end, but I got to question 7, which was what is your favorite tank setup, and I was talking about how goldfish planted tanks are my favorite. Gonna end it there. My favorite tank setup is gotta be a planted tank, and then further that, goldfish planted tanks, and then one species of plant, one species of fish kind of tanks. Those are my 2 favorites. And question number 8, what is your dream tank? My dream tank involves my dream job. So in the future with GGP Aquatics, I'd like to eventually run my own store where I breed my own goldfish, I breed my own guppies, I breed my own plecos, I breed, like, as well as other fish, like, too. Like, I'd eventually like to do red-bellied dace. They're a local cold water minnow up here in Canada, and they look amazing. And I think that cold water is just something that Canadians should do, especially because if you just keep a fish tank in your basement and you don't heat it, you're saving a ton of money. And if it gets freezing cold and your power goes out, those fish are going to be fine as long as you're fine. So I think that's something I'd like to push towards. So even like keeping things like bluegill and something like the long-eared sunfish, that's something I'd like to do. Anyway, that's my dream job, but my dream tank. So imagine this: you go into a store, you know, GGP Aquatics. On the right, you got the register, you got the aisles with all your dry goods, your foods, you know, your nets, all that stuff, whatever. You get halfway to the store because the fish are at the back, and you see this pond. There's a lower pond and an upper pond. In the upper pond, you have fancy goldfish. So you have your lion heads, your ranchus, your ryukins, your orandas, in every different color, top view. Now if you were crouched down, there's little viewing panels, almost like in like SeaWorld or something. And you'd be able to see the fish from the side. And I'd also like to have like a little acrylic tank with a pump that pumps water into it, and it has a little overflow. So when me or the employees, you know, are standing there with somebody who's like, oh, I want that one, and I want that one. You know, we take the net, put it in the acrylic tank so you can see it from the side. You can examine it for, you know, gill flukes or ick or whatever other diseases. And I feel like that would be a good setup. And it's just, I've seen it in some of like the stores in Asia where like, oh, it's a big vat of goldfish. You scoop them up, you put them in the tank where you can see them, and then that fish is separated for when you're ready to bag it. And then in the other pond, I would have large, more like the pond-oriented goldfish. So like you got your commons, your comets, your shabunkins, your sarasas, your wakens, your jeekins, stuff like that. Because I'd actually like to keep jeekins and some of the rare goldfish, because honestly we need more of those in the hobby as more people get into goldfish. And like that's one of my goals, is to really push goldfish, because I think everybody's like, oh well, everybody keeps goldfish when they're a kid. Well, yeah, they're amazing. They're super hardy, easy to keep fish, and you just need to learn how to keep it properly. You can't keep it in a 5-gallon tank like you can a betta. So anyway, you got these two ponds, have tons of current flowing between, because it have two rivers with kind of like almost like a little bridge to walk over these rivers with. That way you could see the goldfish from above as well as walking around the pond. I'd like to have pots with little like lilies and plants and stuff all around it. I would want it to have like just like inspiration for like people that, oh yeah, I really want to get like some pond fish. Like then you see my pond in my store, and I'd have these big spotlights going, you know, like really coming down. And if there was algae, you know, I'd probably let it stay in the pond, just because like people need to realize that algae is actually good for goldfish. They eat it. And then I'd keep like bottom floor drains for it, and I'd have like piping going under the floor, because then it's really easy. You just do a 50% water change, all the poop goes gone. So yeah, that's my dream tank that comes with my dream job and my dream store. Question number 9, what is your dream fish? So my dream fish is like, I have 2. Both are obtainable, just with a little bit of work. So I don't like big monsters. Like I do, but I don't. I don't like big monster fish like arowana and stuff, even though I think they're cool. But my dream fish is a goldfish. Now I have 2 of them, like I said. One of them I've seen Jennifer Lynx from Solid Gold. She bred them. They are ghost Bristol shabunkins. So they're a white goldfish with you can see through their gill plates, so you can see their gills, and it looks like they're blushing, and it's super cute. And they have these little black beady eyes, so it looks like they're dead. They're like little zombie fish swimming around like this weird creamy white color, and they've got like some black and blue speckles. It's kind of like a Marilyn Monroe look, and it's just super sleek and cool. I love it. And then they're a Bristol, so a Bristol comet goldfish, just so anybody who doesn't know, is a goldfish with a B-shaped tail, or like a heart-shaped tail. It looks really cool. It's decorative, but it's not so showy and frilly that the fish can't swim good. And it's just amazing if you get it right. And I really love that goldfish. And I'd like to get like a small pond of those to show off to people. But that's just me. Okay, attempt number 5. Apparently everybody's doing laundry tonight. Where was I? Fancy goldfish strain, Randa and fantail mix, high dorsal fin, tails. I was talking about the tails. So the color isn't important. I want like a good mix of color for this big, robust, fat-headed, big dorsal fin breed. I also want the body to be medium-ish, kind of like a Jeekin, where it's like, it's long, but it's also compact. It's not as long as a common or a comet, but it isn't a ranchu, where it's like super stout and short. I'd kind of like a medium, like 8-inch goldfish kind of thing. Kind of like how Arandas get up to about that length. And then for the tail, instead of having the splayed out butterfly look where they can barely swim, I'd want it like up and kind of like a butterfly from the side kind of look, like a Jikin. Or if I could get a double bristle tail, that would be amazing. Actually, just having the 2 double Bs would be super. I'd love that completely. Or even just like if I could just get that big stout body with like a ribbon tail, like a fantail, I think that would be good too. Like the goal with that kind of goldfish breed, that dream fish, would be it's a fancy goldfish you can keep in your pond that looks good and can compete with other big pond fish, but bring it in and it isn't too different from a fancy goldfish, so you don't need like 50 gallons for one fish. So you don't run into that issue of, oh my god, I need to way over filter my tank and my fish have no swimming room and they're super stressed all winter. I want these fish to be able, like, they're small enough and compact enough that you can bring them in and they're still comfortably held, like an Orando or a Ryukin would be. And it's not like you don't need a 120-gallon aquarium just to hold your 3 or 4 like pond fish. Not that anybody really does. They make them suffer through the winter. Anyway, so that's my dream fish. That's the aquarium tuber challenge. I'm not nominating anybody to do this challenge just because I'm kind of using it as an icebreaker because it's nicely structured and I found it to be pretty cool. If I were to nominate somebody, it'd be Braden's Bettas because he's one of my followers on Instagram. I watched his live stream with Corey on Aquarium Co-op. I like his content. He's a cool kid. And we've chatted a little bit on the comments on Instagram, so I feel like we've kind of bonded a little bit. So if he gets into the YouTube game too, then I totally think he should do this just as an icebreaker, just like I did, or even just to, you know, tag Corey and be like, hey, you should do this. Anyway, you should follow me on Instagram if you don't already. I post about every day. Sometimes I miss a day, but that's not too often. And sometimes I spam you guys with tons of content because I just get busy up to my elbows in water. You know, messing around in all the fish tanks, and then I take all the pictures afterwards, like before and after. Oh, progress pic. Oh, this is what I'm doing with this tank today. Oh, you know what? Oh, I just have a super good picture of olive or sausage or one of my plecos, and so that's kind of, you'll see it if you go see it. If you have Instagram, totally follow me. It's GGP Aquatics, just like the YouTube channel. I'm trying to keep it very consistent in that way. If you want to know what it stands for, goldfish, guppies, and plecos, I feel like those 3 fish alone are something that stands out and are very common in the hobby, and I'd like to kind of mass produce. I feel like goldfish and guppies are really good starter fish. And the thing that brings my attention in on those 3 kinds of fish is there's so many different color varieties. They like just you can get every kind of fin, every kind of color, every kind of appearance, and it's just amazing. Like with the plecos, you can get up to 2 feet with huge armor scales, or you could get like down to 2 inches or even less with like an auto sinkless, and it's like it doesn't even have armor plating at that point. It's tiny. They have the sucker mouths, and you can have like from exclusively like diatom algae, diatom algae like grazers, all the way up to like the Hypancistrus, like the zebra pleco that's eating like exclusively meat, or like the Queen Aberesque pleco, exclusively meat, where like goldfish you can get every kind of, like, you get compact, long, different kinds of goldfish, and I think that's amazing, especially for somebody starting out with goldfish are like $5 at like your local fish store, unless they're high quality kind, and that's just marketing really. You can get a good goldfish at PetSmart, you just need to medicate it. And then guppies. Guppies come in every color under the rainbow, from white to black, and everything in between. You know, you got your reds, your greens, your blues, your purples, all that stuff. And then you got your finnage, every kind of finnage for all 3 of those kind of. I think goldfish, guppies, plecos, if that's not entertaining to you,
then you are in a very niche side of the hobby where you're you know what, you're only into South American cichlids, and you only like, you know, your Jack Dempseys and your Oscars, or you're only a Mabuna guy. You know, you've got your big 180-gallon tank with 180 cichlids in it, and it's like, whoa, okay, well that's what you specialize in. Well, I like community fish, and I feel like I want to bring in content for just the average aquarist. Yeah, so follow me on Instagram, check out my other videos, if I post any by this point. I definitely posted my Java Moss video. That was kind of impromptu, like last minute. Check it out if you want to know how to make a Java Moss wall. Other than that, have a good day or night, depending on when you're watching this, and tank on.